KCRW Radio in Los Angeles. Hope you're all enjoying your conferencing here at South by Southwest. For me, being from a radio station, I always come down here for the music portion of South by, but really exciting for me to be here for interactive and film, coming down a little bit earlier, and checking out the Lionsgate Lounge, where we've been doing talks and music, all kinds of things over the last couple days. In fact, it wraps up tomorrow right here. Get here early at 10 a.m. There's a yoga class right here where you're all sitting and standing. So 10 a.m., come on down, get your Monday started the right way here with us. It's also followed by a dance party called Burn to the Beat. Is that what it's called? Burn to the Beat? It all happens right here, so join us at Cedar Street. All right, you guys having a good night? Thank you for coming. So it is, I guess, fitting, being an LA guy and being a music guy, to introduce our next discussion to the stage. Interviewed by Scott Mance from Access Hollywood. Please welcome the Academy Award-winning composer of Moonlight. Just kidding, just kidding, just kidding. Little Oscar joke. Let me try that again. The Academy Award-winning composer of La La Land, Justin Hurwitz.
Okay, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, before we bring Justin on the stage here, first of all, tonight only, here in Austin, Texas, Austin is the city of stars, and it's shining just for you. How much did you love La La Land? Winner of 6 Academy Awards. Best Director, Damien Chazelle. Best Actress, Emma Stone. Best Cinematography, Production Design, Original Score, Original Song. It just crossed $400 million worldwide. And ladies and gentlemen, right here at the Lionsgate Lounge, as they say in Variety, we have breaking news just for you. You are the first to hear that the digital debut for La La Land will be on April 11th. And then, 2 weeks later, 4K, DVD, and Blu-ray, Lionsgate drops on April 25th. But right now, please welcome the composer of the music for La La Land, 2-time Academy Award winner, Justin Hurwitz. Okay, so, first of all, I mean, the first question is kind of obvious here, but Justin, with all of the success of this movie over the past 7 months, starting with its premiere at the Venice Film Festival on August 31st, and then its North American debut at the Telluride Film Festival on September 2nd at 2:30 p.m. at the Chuck Jones Theater. That's where I saw the movie. How proud are you of the critical, the commercial success of this movie, which was not exactly a slam dunk when you first started working on it?
Yeah, I'm very proud. I still can't quite believe that this many people have seen it so far, that this many people like it. It's something we tried for years to make. Nobody wanted to make it. Back in 2011, we were trying to make it. They were like, you want to make a jazz musical with, nobody knew who Damien was, nobody who knew who I was, so we couldn't make it. And then years later, Lionsgate stepped up and gave us an incredible opportunity to get to make it. And so every step of the way, getting to actually show it at film festivals, having people like it, having it get nominations, having it win things, and then having it gone this worldwide and having so many people seen it is kind of surreal.
Now, do you remember the first conversation you and Damien had where he said to you, okay, so I have this idea, it's a love story about a jazz musician and an aspiring actress, and it's a musical. Do you remember that first conversation you had with Damien about that?
Yeah, it sounded good to me. As long as I got to make music, I was happy. I think it was the other people who were like, "What are you talking about? Like, are you? How is this gonna work?" But we had done a musical, the very first movie, the first feature either of us made, called Guy and Madeline on a Park Bench. It was basically a student film. We were juniors in college, and it was a musical, and we made it, and we were very much learning as we made it. We're still learning, but the learning curve was particularly steep on that one. If any of you have seen it, but it was we wanted to make another one, and we just started talking about it back in 2010 or so.
Now, like, tell me about some of the first melodies that came to you when you really started working through the story, working through the arc of the story of Sebastian and Mia. And were any of those early melodies that didn't make it to the finished film?
Yeah, the very first thing Damien wanted me to tackle was the main theme of the movie, the thing that we now call me and Sebastian's theme. So before any song melodies, that's what he wanted me thinking about. So I do what I always do, which is I sit at the piano for very, very long days, weeks, months on end, just trying melody after melody after melody, hundreds of melodies, throwing them out, sending them to Damien and then throwing them out. We went through a lot. We went through many until I came up with the one that that became, the so that was the idea, but it didn't. We actually, before that, there was an idea that we really liked that we kind of settled on for a couple of weeks, and we're like, I think that's the theme of the movie, and then we slept on it for a while, and we're like, you know what, I think we can do better. So I kept going, and finally came to this one. But every time I come to a melody, it's not like it comes fully formed. I have the idea for it, and then we like it, but we think, you know what, it can go somewhere else and be better. So even once I came up with that, there was a lot more, where can it go from here? I remember the very first version of it that I sent to him, it resolved differently. I mean, I'm just revealing that I'm not as good a composer as you think I am, but it went like. It repeated itself, and so Damien loved it, we both loved it, but he was like, I think it can, I think the fourth time it needs to resolve a little differently, so that's, that's where, I worked on, and it made sense, because that's what I think melodies do. They kind of answer things, but then take things new places, so I just didn't think of that right away, so.
One of the things about being Sebastian's theme is it captures the euphoria, it captures the love, but it also captures the heartbreak. Because we've all seen the film, no spoilers here, but the perspective looking back on the film as a whole, when you hear that theme, you hear the heartbreak. At least I do when I hear that theme. Was that a conscious decision to sort of put that sort of undercurrent in the theme? Absolutely, yeah. All the melodies in the movie really have that kind of heartbreak and yearning to them for the most part. I think I wanted to cut against even things that are in major, like this is in major. I didn't want it to be too major. I didn't want it to be, I kind of cut against the majorness with this is for people who know music, it's a major seventh. And then I put a lot of suspensions in just to kind of have that that pain and that sort of dissonance. I use a lot of dissonance, so later, it's kind of dissonant. If you hear just those notes, it's dissonant, but if you put it in the right context, it's that dissonance can kind of work in the right way and adds just a little bit more pain to what is otherwise would be kind of straightforward or kind of major or kind of triadic, meaning just triads. Those are the chords, but you add and it just has a little more pain to it. One of the things about the film too that struck me immediately was the tone of the film, not just the music, but the tone of the film itself, because it works as a throwback to the 50s musicals, but it's also current and contemporary, so, you know, millennials will dig it too. You know, how challenging was that for you and Damien to maintain that tone, not just stylized, but also in the score?
The old-fashionedness and the which tone, the sort of
And just like this, to maintain that fine line between
Yeah.
making it work as a throwback, but also
Yeah.
make it current.
It was tough. I mean, we took a lot of inspirations from older musicals, all sorts of things from these like French musicals from the 60s to MGM stuff like Singing in the Rain and Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers musicals. Those were all part of the inspiration, but we wanted something that would not sound like it actually could have been composed in the 50s or like it actually could have belonged to one of those. So it was finding, you know, drawing from that language, both compositionally and orchestrationally, with, you know, a little bit of big band, a little bit of jazz, but still having a tone, a feel, a flavor that would sound like its own thing. That was very much the goal. We hoped that the music would just kind of sound like La La Land and not sound like any of those things. So I thought about that not just with the composition of it, but when I was orchestrating it, to find new colors, textures, not have it be actually big band. I'd say the thing that was the one piece that's the most deliberately retro is A Lovely Night, the one on the hill, where I think from a compositional and from an orchestration standpoint, it was the most kind of winking retro intentionally. Other than that, like, I don't know, Another Day of Sun, the orchestration there is very eccentric. There's a lot of pop and Beach Boys and just weird, like almost disco type string lines, and there's a lot of stuff there. So I didn't want it to sound like it belonged to any given era.
Let's talk about Another Day of Sun. So, by round of applause, how many of you are from LA or have ever been to LA? Top of the film, beautiful sunny day, looks warm, people are in short sleeve shirts, winter. I mean, that doesn't set the tone for La La Land. But then you're on the 105 interchange going east onto the 110 north, which is such a bitch. It is such a bitch. The only thing that's actually comparable is like when you're on the 10 east going onto the 405 north. That is awful. But in terms of kicking off the movie with Another Day of Sun, what were you trying to, you talked about it a little bit just now, but like talk a little bit more about the development of that song.
Yeah.
And capturing sort of the fun of what we're about to see, and you know, something that feels very La La Land.
Yeah. That song was by far the hardest to compose. It was the hardest for the lyricists, Ben Chapastik and Justin Paul, to write the lyric for. On every front, it was the hardest to figure out, because it had this very complicated tone it needed to strike, according to Damien in the script, between needing to be exciting, fun, fast, but also betray some of the pain and frustration that these characters are going through. So it couldn't be too happy, but it couldn't be sad either. So it was very tough, and I did something, I kind of approached that in a way that I'd never thought about composing before, which is Damien really wanted a riff. He said, I want there to be a riff, like a really memorable sort of hooky thing that starts off before the song really comes in. So that was where the whole, you know, that thing came from. And I remember I composed that before, I definitely composed that before the melody of the song, and I kept trying to make that work with a melody. It was in a different key at the time. And I kept trying to, you know, find melodies that would work over the top of that, and nothing was really working. It was boxing us in too much. That was one thing we tried that didn't work. And it was too, like, constrictive, I guess. Like I said, I'd never approached things thinking about a riff. I approached things thinking about melody and harmony and emotionally what it needs to be, and also, but really melody. But so that didn't really work. So then I just went back to the drawing board. Okay, now let me just focus on melodies, and that's where came up with eventually, after hundreds of demos, just throwing so much out, you know. It's been a while. So yeah, found that melody, and then found, you know, the other melodies. The chorus melody, I remember. That thing, that was like, both of those were found at different times, I remember. And then, but we still had that riff that we loved. So I remember trying to put the riff over, and it just didn't work. So we came up with the idea of using the riff just as the intro, and then getting into the song. And at which point I decided the piano should just comp. It should just, you know. It should just be doing other stuff. And then found that I could use the riff during the pre-chorus, so when it goes, you know, then the riff worked under that part. So yeah, it was basically combining a lot of different ideas there and figuring out how to construct it. And then, like everything, once we had a piano demo, once it was instrumentally there, then gave it to Pasek and Paul, and they wrote the lyrics. That was also a really hard lyric for them to write, like I said, because so many stories, so many all these characters getting out of cars. Every one of them, characters you're never gonna see again, for starters. So but you still need to catch up with, like, they have a backstory. They came to LA for some reason, they have a dream, writing, acting, musician, whatever they do, and you have to very quickly get their story, get their dream, and then they move on. So it was a hard one.
Well, let's talk about Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone here. Let's hear it for Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone. I just love them to pieces. I mean, the chemistry, I think it's the third movie they've done together, but their chemistry really is very, very crucial to the success of buying into the love story. And, you know, when you were doing your earliest rehearsals with them, at what point did it hit you and Damien that we've got our Sebastian, we've got our Mia, these are the ones. They're perfect together.
I mean, we always kind of dreamed of them. They were really the dream cast. Years before we ever had the ability to cast them, before Damien could ever get in a room and pitch them on it. I remember back in around 2012, I was meeting with a producer, just having a general meeting on for something else, and we had been developing this musical that we couldn't make. Nobody wanted to make it at the time. It was pre-Whiplash. This is before we did Whiplash. It's when we were just developing La La Land, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I heard you guys are working on a musical. Like, who do you want to be in that?" It's like, well, the dream would be like Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling, and he said, "Good luck with that." This was like right after Crazy Stupid Love, I think, and their chemistry was so clear, and just. So it was years later. We couldn't make La La Land. We did Whiplash. That opened the door to being able to make La La Land. Lionsgate, you know, stepped up and gave us an incredible opportunity to get to make it. And at which point, because of Whiplash, Damien was able to actually meet with Emma and then Ryan and get them to do it. But no, as soon as they came aboard, it was like a dream come true. And they also, from the very beginning, they wanted to work as hard as they possibly could. They wanted to, you know, I remember Ryan asking if prep could be even longer, because he wanted more months of piano practice and more months of dancing, and Emma wanting to, you know, both of them wanting to just be in those dance rehearsals for months and really put in the work. And it was great to hear, because we knew this movie would need, you know, beyond the brilliant acting that they bring, it would need that kind of work ethic, and they're both just so dedicated to what they do.
By the way, speaking of Ryan, yes, that is all him on the piano. Those close-ups, it is all Ryan. That is amazing.
No
That's
hand
fantastic.
doubles, not
No
one
hand
shot
doubles.
of a hand double, no CG, not one shot.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, speaking of piano, tell us how you came up with the opening piano riff to City of Stars.
So this is the second time I've been asked that. The last time I remembered it wrong and gave the completely wrong answer. So I actually, I went back on Friday and I looked at all the piano demos I did, and I figured out where it came from. I had remembered the completely wrong thing, which is I'd remembered like composing it first, just as melody and harmony, and then later thinking, oh, you know, and then later thinking, because normally that's what you do, you compose and then you arrange. But I went back and I revisited the piano demos, and I actually discovered that the riff came before the melody, because we go through idea after idea after idea. I just send melody after melody and we throw them out. And the idea I sent right before the one I sent that is in the movie was, it had this like broken chord thing in the left hand. It wasn't quite the riff, but it was very close. It was kind of a broken chord. It went like, and the melody was a different melody because we rejected it. It went like, so it was like that, and Damien said, no, not quite right, move on. So I went on to the next idea, but the next idea was melodically, but I carried through this thing, and I made it more, I actually doubled the note at the top, so instead of just going, I went, and I was actually playing it straight. That was another weird thing I just learned looking at the piano demos. For some reason I was playing it straight. I wasn't swinging it yet. It was like, so this was like, I remember it was idea, we were calling it like ballad 10. 9 was the one that went, you know, and then this was 10, and then as soon as Damien was like, oh, that's great, let's explore it, and we started going like 10A, 10B, 10C, and it was like 10G where I started swinging it. You know. It took a few till I started swinging it, but still then it didn't develop right. And this is how we get to such a high number of demos, because there's the seed is there, but it doesn't go the right direction. I remember it after that it went something like that, which is not obviously City of Stars. So I had to keep exploring until, you know. And even then, I remember then it did other weird things. It went like, instead of, so this is why I go through version after version until we just find it. And once it feels right, then we know it's right, and it doesn't change after that. But it takes many, many attempts to get it right.
Now throughout that process, how many melodies, if you even remember, did you sort of come up with?
Well, I know that I drag them all into iTunes, so I know how many it is. It's about 1,900 piano demos I did. But those are not all different melodies, because keep in mind I come up with something I like and I get it wrong over and over again. So it's, you know, like all those, you know, instead of, those are two different attempts, and I go through attempt after attempt, and not just for the ones that we like, for other ones that we abandon. Like I'll go through 9 versions of it, and then we'll be like, we can do better, and then ditch all of them and move on. So I get to that's how I get up to hundreds of them. But yeah, a lot of demos.
Now the scene, it